Good afternoon. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at Moore Living. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Those of you joining us live, drop your comments or questions for my guests today or myself, and you'll see me turn my head from time to time, and we'll do our best to answer or let people know what your comment might be. I just want to say last week we had so many technical difficulties that we are bringing Jeannie Jacobs back in a couple of weeks, and we just didn't post the show. It was really bad, but we think we're good today. After 6 hours of my life at Comcast, I think we're ready to go. Today's guest is Adam Kaufman, who on his cross-country journey from California to Baltimore had an epiphany, which has since turned into a viable consumer product, beef jerky, Jewish beef jerky. Adam Kaufman's Jewish Jerky Brand is an exploration of Jewish history, culture, and identity, and experimentation with flavors inspired where Jews live. Let's bring in Adam to tell us more about his creation and how he has reimagined jerky to reflect the flavors of the Jewish table. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Dara. How are you?
I am doing great, and I'm so looking forward to this. We were kibitzing around a little bit, folks, right before going on the air. So I always like to start off with, other than doing this show today, what else is on your plate?
Oh my gosh. Well, this morning I went to a networking event out in Hunts Valley. That was pretty cool. It's called InConnects or Insight put on by Connects. It was really interesting. The guy today was talking about business stuff. Later this afternoon, probably gonna try to crunch some numbers. I know that doesn't sound very food-like, but crunch some numbers in relation to the business. Take dogs for a walk, very important. Probably try to make something nice for dinner, and stay warm today.
Yeah. Well, those are all admirable goals, I must say. You said crunch the numbers. I think I read somewhere in this that early on, Moore wrote a story about you. At that point, you were the chief bottle washer. You did everything. Do you have any other employees at this point with Jewish Jerky Brand?
You know, I still don't have any employees. I do have some helping hands. I have met through my temple or synagogue, Bolton Street, a really great food scientist. So he's been helping me out with some of the recipes and scaling them. I've been working with a co-manufacturer who is now making all the beef jerky and starting to make the vegan jerky as well. And I've been working since day one with a couple of collaborators, friends of mine, more from sort of the brand and messaging side. But I'm still pretty much so a one-man band.
Okay. Well, you're getting a lot done. So you have a co-packer, I guess, would be more or less
Yes.
the
Yeah.
terminology.
A co-man, a co-packer, different terms. I actually was asking myself, so where did co-man come from? Because I thought, well, couldn't it be a co-woman? But no, co-man, I guess, comes from co-manufacturer. That's the short.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't want to tell you this when we were kibitzing earlier. I used to work, I put in, I guess, a good 5 years at this company called Acme Packing here in Baltimore. And we're talking over 40 some years ago.
Uh-huh.
And they were a meat snack manufacturer. And we did beef jerky.
Oh my gosh.
And it was called Eagle Canyon. So figure in the 80s. And they just shredded the beef jerky and made it into, at that point, was, similar, but it was a smaller vacuum seal. So people would think like snuff and they would eat the jerky. Just so I have some experience. I understand doing this. Now, you said cook. I always like to look into somebody's background and growing up.
Sure.
What was the family table like for you?
Yeah, no, good question. Probably starts with my grandma Belle, or maybe that's where it all emanates from. Now, I don't know who before her, but my grandma Belle was the cook in the family. My mom, Doris, learned a lot from her as well. But at the end of the day, she was, the go-to person, and I was brought up on her cooking, particularly around the holidays. Um, but food in my home growing up was always not overly important, but it was a mainstay. And I grew up in Los Angeles during the 60s, early 70s. And my parents, God bless them, were really cool. They exposed my sister and I to a variety of cuisine, which today maybe we take a little bit more for granted. So back then, when I was a kid, I was eating sushi, Indian food, Korean food. Yeah, and I think that's where obviously a love of eating and food, but also then being exposed again to the kitchen and feeling comfortable around the kitchen. So I've never been, well, now I'm more in the food business, but I didn't come to what I'm doing from the food business. As you know, I came from marketing and branding is my background.
So you lived in LA, you're a West Coast, you're, as I used to say, a left coast person.
Yes.
You were a left coast person, and you and your partner decided to come to Baltimore. I take it was sort of like a family thing there.
Mhm.
Somewhere along the line, was it Texas that you had the epiphany? Let's
Yes.
let's talk about that.
So, we drove across country to relocate, and we took 10 days to drive across the country. It's a big country. It's the first time that I'd ever driven across country. And actually, the first time I'd ever driven all the way through Texas, which is a big state. But even coming out of LA we took a southerly route to get here. But in Arizona, I saw along the side of the road lots of signs for jerky. I mean, I had no idea that people were so into jerky. And by the time I got to Texas, you see even more signs like jerky, jerky, jerky. But we were somewhere, I don't know, out literally in God's country where the sky and the road just go on forever. And a sign came up and it said, brisket, jerky. And I don't know what I looked at my partner. I said, that's so funny. That's like Jewish jerky. And we giggled and we laughed. And we drove down the road a little bit further. And I turned to her and I said, wouldn't it be funny if I were the big Jew jerk making Jewish jerky? She laughed even more and I laughed. And then a few nights later, we were in Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi. We'd stopped at many Marriott hotels. Oh my God. It was late at night. And I don't know what possessed me, but I thought, I'll just get up and go online and see, does anybody own JewishJerkyBrand.com? So I went to GoDaddy, I punched it in, and up it came, available, and for $9.95, I became the proud owner of Jewish Jerky first, and then later it became Jewish Jerky Brand. And from that moment on, the little seed started and said, there's something here. You got to follow this. And yeah, that's the beginning.
Well, not being in, you were in getting products on the shelves, but making product. There's a whole lot to going into a food product and the USDA, the packaging, the nutritional facts,
Yes.
and going on. So, did you ever at one point say, I think I bit off more than I can chew? No pun intended for the jerky, but.
Cute. Yes and no. So if probably I knew now, then I may not have gone as wholeheartedly into this. But sometimes not knowing things is a good thing.
Right.
And this has been as much an exploration for me around food. As you mentioned earlier, it's also around culture, it's around identity, and it's around religion too. So there's a lot for yours truly to sort of grab hold of and work with, not just the food side, but I didn't know anything. I've been learning all the time, every day, sometimes, like through what they say, a fire hose, like so much information. But yeah, I had no idea. The USDA part was the big kind of whoa, I see. I mean, I know much more now about it, but I didn't realize that would be such a challenge if you're going to be a small, let's say
Entrepreneur.
entrepreneur, craft maker of jerky, and you want your jerky to go beyond, if you will, simply the farmers markets, simply
Right.
direct to consumer. If you want to be able to have people enjoy it, either through retail or online. Yeah.
Right. Well, I noticed that for everybody, you can go to the website, which is jewishjerkybrand.com, and you'll see everything. And there are 4 products that you're doing, 2 that are the beef jerky and 2 that are vegan jerky. And you were kind enough to send me a sample of each. And I have to say, they're really flavorful.
Thank
You're
you.
using the spices, and considering what I know about beef jerky from 40 years ago, it's a big difference. Um, in your travels,
Mhm.
before I forget, and coming, did you ever stop at a Buc-ee's?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Crazy, crazy, crazy place. I mean, it's like 7-Eleven. That's where I come from. There's 7-Elevens out here. Yeah,
Yeah.
7-Eleven on steroids. Like it meets Walmart. Crazy. You've been, yeah?
Well, coming up from Nashville, we stopped at one. And the reason I bring it up was people think of 2 full deli counters, each with a shelf, and it's all beef jerky. I can walk from here to the other bedroom. That's how long the counter was. They had beef jerky, this beef jerky. I have never in my life seen so much jerky. Um, so uh, maybe there's a little niche for you. You can get a little corner from Buc-ee's, but
Right. Yeah.
you probably need a helper, have at least one more person
Yeah. Yeah.
going on there. So let's talk the flavors. What
Uh-huh.
was what was first, the pastrami style or the merguez style?
I started out making a whole bunch of different styles. And again, all of these styles that I'm making have some um, relationship or are rooted in some sort of Jewish cuisine somewhere around the world, which is actually ends up being kind of vast and very fruitful, so to speak. Pardon the pun. But I started to make a bunch of different varieties, and I sent them out to my friends to be like test tasters, like to tell me which ones that I was experimenting with did they like the best. And pastrami came to the top, and merguez came to the top. Um, so I just concentrated on those 2, and they seemed in some ways to be representative of the brand in that pastrami. If you think, okay, well, if you were Jewish living in New York and you were going to make jerky, what kind of jerky would you make? You'd probably make a pastrami style. But again, as you mentioned earlier, Dara, the concept behind the brand is to explore sort of the intersection of identity and Jewish cuisine and food, where Jews have ended up around the world. Right. So merguez, it has its origins in North Africa.
So more the Sephardic.
Exactly. Precisely. Yeah.
I want to tell people also this is all natural. Let's give it the boost. It's all natural, low sodium, low sugar. It's the spices that are used that are a flavor punch when you bite into it. And you also, there's a small percentage that you donate to charity as well on the product.
Yeah.
So the packaging, it's just a hoot. If you know, it's I like it. It's where did I see it? I don't know. So you have, before I forget, you have Boaz. Is that the bull's name?
Boaz.
Boaz.
Boaz, which in Hebrew means like strength.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
Boaz is also, you can find him in the Bible. I'm not sure exactly where, because I'm not, but Boaz is there, I think, somewhere. Anyway, it means strength. Yeah.
Well, people, I'm just going to sort of show you there's reflections here, colorful labels, clever packaging, clever text, you know, with, I like it. It's made with chutzpah since 5781. If you got to be Jewish to get that one, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
And then the vegan jerky, you have Zimis,
Yes.
and then you also have Charaset,
Haroset.
Charaset.
Yeah. Haroset is, I think, that's okay. Haroset.
Charaset.
Yeah.
I'm not the best Jew. I failed Sunday school. My mother got fed up and took me out.
That's okay. No worries. This is part of this for me, again, is really understanding and exploring, like, okay, well, what is it to be a Jew, right? I mean, is it because you can pronounce Haroset? I don't know, maybe, or maybe not, right? But anyway.
All right. It's sort of like Hanukkah. The sea disappears.
Exactly.
Whatever. Just clever packaging. And as I said recently, folks, you can buy the jerky and the merch. He's got merch now. And if you don't know what merch is, he's got t-shirts, he's got this, so he's got merch. That's the new terminology, merch. It's all online. Locally, you're at farmers market. So where's the jerky going to be this weekend?
So typically, I'm at 2 different markets, and they usually, it's every other week for each one. But this week, I'll be at both markets, and the first one is Fells Point Market, and the other is the Baltimore Farmers Market, which is also known as JFX. That's the big one under the freeway. But since in April of this year, I started to run around town and knock on doors, different retail outlets, and see if folks would be interested in carrying the jerky and selling it, through their store to folks. So you can find it around town at some kind of interesting places as well. I believe at every one of the Ace Hardware stores around Baltimore. One of my favorites is you can go to the Museum of Industry, and you can find it there. The Wine Source is another place that you can find it. So kind of a bunch of interesting different places. Again, yours truly going around as the salesperson. So, not some yays and some nays. And then about a month and a half ago, started to sell online. So you can go and buy the jerky now online, or our jerky online.
Well, the growth, especially since COVID, of people going out and walking and hiking, this makes a great item. The vegan jerky is just really tasty. To give people an idea, I have to do this. The Simis is roasted strips of root vegetables infused with ginger and lime. And the Haroset is dried fruit and nut strips with cinnamon and clove. Great for the kids. And it's in a vacuum seal. And once you open it, you can pop it in the refrigerator. There's 2 ounces per container, but that's a lot of dried fruit. And it's only 70 calories. So for individual serving. I just love the flavors. I can probably just snort the flavors. So but that's me. That's,
Thank
you
you.
know, and I also used to work for a spice company. There aren't places I haven't worked. So I appreciate that. Um, Let me see. Family table. You like to cook. Um, does your partner cook, or have you been in cooking for a long time?
Um, she doesn't cook as much as I do, but when she decides to cook, she makes amazing stuff. So she's the reluctant better cook than yours truly. I'm sort of a day-to-day, what are we having for dinner tonight? I will
Okay.
make that. But if
Okay.
guests were to come over, let's just say that she'll step in and, and make something amazing.
Right. Um, they're popping up the story from a couple years ago. And Virginia Cruz says, sounds she would love to try some. She's maybe at Eddie's, would like agree to offer this. The funny thing is, I ran into a friend who works at Eddie's, and I was saying she had no idea about the Jewish jerky. Have you approached Eddie's?
I actually have, but for whatever reason, the jerky didn't get into the right hands. So whoever is interested at Eddie's, please contact me. I would love it to be at Eddie's. That would be brilliant. But yeah,
Okay. Well, it's packaging, it's slotting
sure.
allowances, depends where you
There's
go.
it's you know what there's no rhyme or reason. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. But here's, I think, the idea here is, at least for me, literally staying in the game, right? So eventually, and in this case, Eddie's is going to discover it and see how great it is, and their clientele will love it too.
Yeah. They're great supporters for local suppliers, so maybe we'll talk afterwards and I'll see who you talk to.
Right on.
See what goes on. I'm just looking, there was so much, some packaging, creative director, blah, 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 background, marketing. I'm just checking lists.
Sure, sure.
I think here's a quote from you. I think it was, for me, doing the right thing means how do you create something that's a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more in line with what we understand this planet and our existence to be. Great
Yeah,
quote.
yeah. I mean, the idea here, I mean, I even shorthand that through the North Star of the brand is to try to do the right thing. I mean, when and wherever possible. Um, what I have found on this little adventure of jerky making, or journey of jerky making, is it's very difficult for, at least for packaged goods. You can be extremely small or you can be really big. Everywhere in between is a little bit challenging. And what I mean by that is, we talked about USDA, right? That's a prime example. Unless you're working through a company that is already certified, has scale, and is making things at scale, you just, you can't do it. So at my first inclination in just my little bubble was to try to use the best products possible, try to do the packaging in the most sustainable way. Along the way, you have to make some compromises in order to get something to market and out there. I think, though, that if the brand becomes as successful as I hope it will be, then maybe it can go back and start to, if you will, make good on some of the sustainability aspects that being small, you just can't afford to do, if that makes sense.
Right. I understand. Each accomplishment opens up other doors or shuts doors, and then
Yeah.
your brand, what you want it to be, is coming back to what you envision for the brand and coming back to that. So I want to remind people all the information, actually the story that we wrote on Adam a couple of years ago, the link is up, the link to the website. And the website is very simple, jewishjerkybrand.com. You want to get some jerky and you want to get some merch. Get the merch. I just love it. I heard that somebody who was it? Julia Louis Dreyfus has a podcast, Women of a Certain Age, I think it is, or something like that. And she says, we now have merch. So that's my thing. I get hung up. So you know that there are going to be questions at the end of the show.
Sure.
So let's hit them. If you can go back and give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, you sent these ahead of time. I thought a little bit about it. Probably a number of things I would say back to myself at 18, but certainly an 18-year-old. But top of the list would be, enjoy the moment, be in the present, enjoy it, because it doesn't last.
Remember it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. What's the best bite you've had all week?
It's actually not a bite. I had a sip of mint tea that the father of the co-packer made. It was fantastic. I don't know how many different types of mint he used, but delicious. Mint tea.
Okay. What are two musts that must be in your refrigerator?
Oh my gosh. That was a tough one. Thanks.
You can make it 3 if you want.
No, that's okay. And I left it at 2. I'll follow you. The hot sauce is one that has to be there. And I struggled with the other, but I think maybe hummus has to be there. Some hummus and hot sauce are the 2. And maybe the alliteration I like, hummus, hot sauce. Yeah.
Right. There's a question. Do you know what the brand was on the mint tea? Or was it loose leaf?
He made it all himself.
Ah, okay.
So he went around, he may have used some store-bought, but he picked the mint that's growing in the garden.
Right.
And yeah, so it's his. It's Bruce's mint tea.
Okay. Since you do cook, do you have an ultimate culinary fail that you're willing to share?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to share one around jerky. I tried to make gefilte fish jerky, and that came out really horrible.
Yeah.
It was really bad.
Well, you tried.
You tried. Right? Yeah.
There's something about, do you know what gefilte means?
No, I don't. Is it Yiddish gefilte? Is that?
Gefilte means stuffed.
Oh, stuffed.
So what they would do is people would have a big fish and they make the fish balls and they'd stuff it inside the fish and then roast the fish.
Huh. I didn't know that. That's great.
I learned that from my Russian manicurist a long time ago.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, the idea of the brand is to try to play around with different Jewish foods and see what happens. Can they be dehydrated? I mean, I'm actually working on one right now, another vegan, which is called, what am I, chopped liver? And it's actually, it's made with mushrooms, walnut, and onion are the core. And I've been testing it out at some of the farmers markets. Very good reaction. Interestingly enough, a lot of folks have never tasted chopped liver in their lives, so they have no reference point, and they like it. Other people, you get people who've never liked chopped liver, so they're not going to like it, but you have other people that have had chopped liver. And
right. There's a very famous mock chopped liver recipe that's done with lesser peas.
Yes.
Have you seen that? It's really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Yeah. Well, this is a mock one as well. Yep.
Yeah. If you could wake up tomorrow morning with a new talent, what would the new talent be?
This is going back to the beginning, like what I'm doing. I would love to, a mathematician. I would like to be a mathematician. Numbers would be my friend, and I could easily manipulate them on Excel spreadsheets left and right, pivoting up and down, spitting out all these possibilities with numbers. That's what I would like.
That's a first. I usually get singers or dancers or artists, mathematician, good with life goal, being excellent with Excel.
Excel and excellence, yes.
Right. And my final question is, what didn't I ask you that I probably should have?
Oh, you could have asked me how the business or what effect October 7th had on the business and the brand out in the marketplace, and what it currently is. That it's kind of a touchy subject, but that would have been an interesting area to explore.
Do you want to expand upon that?
Well, I think for me, I woke up on October 8th and said to myself, what the heck am I doing here? You've gone ahead and understandably picked, a very powerful name, a very powerful concept, Jewish. But at the time, I was, really going back and forth in my head and thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a really challenging time, which it's turned out to be extremely challenging. But I sort of came to the conclusion that no, now is the time for this brand to actually sort of double down on why it exists and what it's for, because it's about trying to embrace things, bring people together, find commonality through food versus exclusion, marking off, I and other. That's not what this brand is about. And I think the world in general needs more of that. I think, the situation around Israelis and Palestinians could use that.
Right.
So yeah, that's that said, sometimes I think there's been some headwinds that have been created with regards to having a brand product called Jewish Jerky Brand out in the world today. And again, I'm all in for it. Meaning, sure, I wish that we lived in a period where things were much more quote unquote normal. But I think it's great to be sort of in the mix, if you will. And so, yeah, it's,
You're not burying your head in the sand. You're not changing. You're using it as a positive.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure. And now I have a supply of jerky. I'm set to go. Guy came to put in a new faucet and do something. I said, here, take some jerky with you. I'm one person, there's only so much I can eat.
Yeah.
Adam, it's been a pleasure. I hope that somewhere along the line here in Baltimore we get to meet in person. Yeah. I find you very entertaining and bright, and would love to spend some off time just getting to know you and your partner. And welcome to Baltimore.
Thank you so much, Dara.
All right. The best of the holiday season.
Yeah.
And folks, I just have a couple of notes. Always feel free to reach out to me via my email, food@jmoreliving.com, or my Instagram is @DaraCooks, and I do have a Facebook page called the Food Enthusiast, so you can follow there. Next week's guest is Kevin Deschennes. He's a chef, author, producer, culinary director for the Newport Mansions in Rhode Island, and is very involved with doing major food events. So I look forward to having him on the show. A gentle reminder that you can sign up at jmoreliving.com for the free This Week in Baltimore Eating newsletter that comes out every Tuesday. All you have to do is go to the website, jmoreliving.com, click on Connect in the menu, and you'll see where you can sign up for that. Has recipes, has a copy of the show, has the food news in the area. So do sign up. It's free. And if you're like me, you like to read about food. So do that. As always, our shows are immediately archived in video form on Jmore Living's Facebook page and jmoreliving.com. We truly appreciate it when you share our show with friends and family. Feel free to go back into our archives and enjoy past shows. As always, may your plates always remain full. Hope to see you next Thursday.